Coronavirus.
The purge is not over. Шароварщина.
At least somewhere Ukraine is overriding the United States.
Global female dominance.
Around the world, girls. Hello world, this is Kyiv, not Kiev on the line.
My name is Polina Bachuk and this is my colleague Tetiana Hajduk.
And here is our top news from Ukraine for the week.
But why not we start, as we usually do, with you subscribing to our YouTube channel and clicking on the bell right on the top of the page to follow the notifications. Yeah, you'll see the instructions over here. So done?
Then we're ready to start.
Every week we check what the world-leading media outlets wrote about Ukraine to tell you what we Ukrainians think about this or that story.
Guess who was the main newsmaker of the past week? Right? President Volodymyr Zelenskyy himself and his political decisions in particular. And by that, I mean the reshuffle of the cabinet of ministers and dismissal of Ukraine's top prosecutor.
Yep, the topic of the renewed Ukraine's government was dominant, evolving from discussing the personalities of the new ministers to analyzing the effects of the change of the cabinet composition that has already caused a rather ambiguous reaction of the foreign investors.
The thing is, foreign investors, persuaded by President Zelenskyy's promises to modernize the country and tackle corruption, have demonstrated good appetite for the Ukrainian bonds. But after last Thursday's reshuffle, the yield on Ukrainian dollar bonds rose dramatically.
Past week's clear out of Ukraine's government barely 6 months after it took office raised fears that President Zelenskyy had abandoned his efforts to overhaul the economy and tackle corruption, says Financial Times.
Foreign investors had a negative reaction on the new personalities coming to top positions in Ukraine's government and their vague attitude toward the International Monetary Fund requirements for reform and transparency.
As a result, a report by American investment bank Morgan Stanley that was released last week recommended investors to sell Ukrainian government bonds before the uncertainty in Kiev expanded the budget deficit.
Yeah, investors also were skeptical over the ousting of Prosecutor General Ruslan, who had been praised by Kiev's Western backers for trying to clean up a corrupt prosecutor's office.
In the infamous phone call between the two presidents, Trump and Zelenskyy, last July, the latter told Trump that he would soon appoint the prosecutor who would be 100% my person, his person.
Yeah, but as it turned out, Ryaboshabka was far more a person of his own that President would want him to be. Instead of investigating the Bidens, as was asked during July phone conversation, he chose to audit the case. Not only a change in wording, but also a change in approach. Apparently, that approach couldn't fulfill the hopes of those insisting on investigation.
Also, before he was forced out, Mr. Ryaboshabka told Ukrainian news outlets that he had made good progress on the Privatbank case, and that prompts some people to move quick and in a cynical way. Let me remind you that by Privatbank case, we mean the Ukrainian largest lender that Igor Kolomoisky, media and banking tycoon, used to own and used to use as a piggy bank.
Privatbank had to be nationalized in 2016 after regulators found a black hole in its accounts because of fraudulent lending. Now Mr. Kolomoisky, who has repeatedly denied wrongdoing, is seeking to have the nationalization overturned in Ukraine's Supreme Court.
The rumors are that that very prosecutor office's progress on the Privatbank case became one of the reasons why top prosecutor Ryaboshabka was forced to leave his office.
Yeah, this dismissal is a painful blow to the hopes of Ukraine's Western partners, in particular the United States, to fight corruption in Ukraine. But even the strong support of the Prosecutor General expressed by G7 countries in a statement on the eve of Ryaboshabka's dismissal has not kept him from losing office. The signal sent to the Ukrainian authorities by the G7 may not have been heard, or even worse, it was ignored.
But Western backers of Ukraine may be disappointed even more. In a conversation with Daily Beast, Melinda Herring, Deputy Director of the Atlantic Council's Eurasia Center, she said, "The purge is not over. They will go after the leadership of the National Anti-Corruption Bureau and the National Bank of Ukraine next, unless the West makes a ton of noise."
Isn't it a coincidence that it's the National Anti-Corruption Bureau that has got a private bank case to investigate, and that it's a national bank that is at open war with Kolomoisky in numerous courts in several jurisdictions? That was an open question.
Yeah. Another most discussed media event in Ukraine was an interview that President Zelenskyy gave to British The Guardian. Zelenskyy told The Guardian that his presidency came with challenges and catastrophic problems, and now I'm citing, he said, that appeared like pimples on an 18-year-old kid.
Well, Mr. President, I've got far worse news for you. Seems like we've found symptoms of coronavirus infecting Ukraine. It's transmitted mainly through handshakes and bank transfers. That means you need to be very careful about who you shake your hands with.
Yeah.
Do you remember we asked you to share the stereotypes you know about Ukraine? As we promised in our episodes previously, we're going to break some of them. The time has come.
We have thoroughly read all your comments and now ready to break top 5 myths that you mentioned. Ready, steady?
Go! Myth number 1. It's called the Ukraine.
Many foreigners, including politicians and opinion leaders, regularly call Ukraine with an article Z.
Into the Ukraine. The Ukraine.
It is true that the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic that existed until 1991 was commonly called as the Ukraine in English, meaning it is a part of the Soviet Union. But even at those times, the term was a shorthand. Now Ukraine is an independent state that is neither part of the USSR nor of Russia. The article is rooted in a traditional translation choice that seems very insignificant but has huge political implications for us.
But even if you ignore the linguistics, the country's official name is Ukraine, and you don't want to seem ignorant, do you?
Myth number 2. Ukraine is having a civil war.
The war in Ukraine's eastern Donbass region that has been going on for more than 5 years now and claimed more than 13,000 lives seems a confusing one. And it's Russia that has purposely made that this way. Following its stealthy and illegal annexation of Crimea, Russia kept funding, outfitting and supplying troops to the eastern borders of Ukraine. So calling the conflict a civil war is incorrect.
The war was started and is perpetuated through funding, weaponry, supplies and troops by Russia. It is not a civil war. And in response to one of your comments that is like, are the Russians still grabbing the land? Yes. Oh, no. Я перепутала. We respond that fortunately the Kremlin seemed to not be as appetite for now, thanks to the Ukrainian firm position that Russia is an aggressor state and our oppression, as well as thanks to the international community's support. But Crimea and eastern Ukraine are still occupied, and the war is still not over.
Myth number 3. Chernobyl is a dead zone.
The release of HBO's Chernobyl has undoubtedly led to a share of horror stories and conspiracy theories around the Chernobyl nuclear plant today. For sure, the disaster would forever be captured in the memory of the Ukrainian people. But today the radiation story is over, and today Chernobyl is becoming a great site to visit.
If you'd like to spend a weekend in Chernobyl, and anyone can do that via ordering an excursion, you would not see any mutants, stalkers or fantastic beasts. Instead, you will have a unique opportunity to meet very friendly wild animals that are not afraid of people. Just think of any other place in the world where you could simply feed foxes in their natural environment. Fox Soman even has his own Facebook account.
It seems like the absence of people has benefited the nature. Because of that, Chernobyl is becoming a place of inspiration for various Ukrainian and foreign artists, musicians, etc. When ones come to Chernobyl to witness the great tragedy, they find another side of the coin, and that is eternal power and beauty of the Ukrainian nature.
Myth number 4. Ukraine is all about sharovary.
And now our favorite section, what is what? What is sharovary? Sharovary are white baggy trousers that the Ukrainian Cossacks were always wearing. And in that context, we have another term in Ukraine, which is sharovarshchina. That term has a rather negative connotation because it is a very narrow and rather primitive way of representing the Ukrainian culture and identity through pseudo-village and pseudo-Cossack clothes and other lifestyle elements.
Despite the widespread myth, Ukraine is a country to be proud of, especially in fashion industry, and Kyiv,
Not Kiev.
can definitely be called the fashion capital, if not of the world, but of Europe for sure. Come for the Ukrainian Fashion Week this September to make sure we are telling you the truth.
Spotted Rihanna and Dua Lipa in Mariana Senchina, Dakota Johnson and Emily Ratajkowski in Bevza, Bella Hadid and Kourtney Kardashian in Yankee Yankee, Demi Moore and Catherine Zeta-Jones in Vita King, and many more world-famous faces wearing the label Made in Ukraine. And what about you there?
Myth number 5. Ukrainians are the most drinking nation.
But let's drink first.
Sure thing.
It's a myth. It's a myth.
Frankly speaking, if we glance at the alcohol consumption statistics 2019, we'll see that Ukraine is even not on top 5. Among the world's busiest nations of 2019 are Belarus, Lithuania, Grenada, Czech Republic, and France. Ukraine is sharing its modest 24th place with Canada. The United States are taking the 25th place. At least somewhere Ukraine is overriding the United States.
MH17 plane crash trial. The trial of 4 men accused of launching the missile that downed a passenger airline in 2014 began in the Netherlands after years of investigations. Despite Russia has repeatedly denied involvement in the deadly attack, the investigators say they have proof that the Buk missile system that shot the plane down came from a military base in Russia.
The whole world expands quarantine measures to stem spread of coronavirus. Religious organizations reacted as well. Meanwhile, in Vinnytsia, more than 7,000 believers of the Russian Orthodox Church in Ukraine gathered for the cross procession to pray for the healing from the spooky virus. Yep, the best way to hide from the virus is to get lost in the crowd. Despite there is still only one officially recognized case of coronavirus in Ukraine, yesterday on March 11, government stated about imposing the quarantine regime in all over the country.
And now about other marches. Over 2,000 women joined a rally commemorating the International Women's Rights Protection Day in Kiev. Participants came out to remind people that this occasion is not just about beauty and femininity, but a day for women to talk about their rights.
One of the marchers' key demands was to ratify the so-called Istanbul Convention on preventing and combating violence against women and domestic violence, to which Ukraine is a signatory. Participants also decried sexism and discrimination in the public sphere.
Although the majority of Ukrainian women, educated and successful, do not feel limited in their rights and opportunities for self-realization, it's yet to speak of full equality in Ukraine.
Yeah, statistics says that Ukrainian women are paid about 22% less than men on the equal job positions. And if you look at the composition of the new Ukrainian government, you'll find no more than just one woman heading the ministry.
There's still a lot to fight for.
Yeah, by the way, what is the situation with women's rights in your country? Please write in comments, what do you think of gender equality issue? Do we really live in a man world? Or is it the feminists' tale to establish global female dominance?
Who runs the world?
Who run the world, girls?
We will be pleased to hear from you.
These were Tetiana and Polina.
Wash your hands, stay kind, and remember, Kyiv, not Kiev.
From Ukraine with love.
You're too late.
What can I do? What can I do? I'm with all the passion I have.
No kisses.
No kisses.
No kisses.
I'm sorry. Never happen
Ukraine
again.
with
Never
love.
happen again.
Okay.
Тепер ідіть мити руки.